This is your spotlight. I am your host, Eurydice Roman, and I am here with Kryus Keenan WestCott.
Hi.
Dang, so dang, you almost had the same kind of like initials as Kanye West.
Yes, almost. Almost.
Oh, almost. Just,
A
just, just,
couple
just,
extra letters there.
just a couple of them. Oh no, no, no. You got Kim Kardashian West. There you go. Ah,
There we go. I'll take it.
that lady.
I'll take the money too.
It's all good. It's all good. It's like, aside from the letters, can I get some extra zeros to the account? That'd be great.
Couple extra commas.
Um,
Yeah.
so I am here with Kryus, and he has a podcast called The Vibe with KY.
hmm I do. Yeah. The Vibe with Kai podcast. It started off with COVID time. Started in March of 2020 when everybody was on their own, trapped inside of their house for a little bit. And I had always wanted to have a podcast because I felt that I had a lot to say. And I finally started doing it in March of 2020, and it's been going well ever since. I'm up to 179, no, 184 episodes now. It's been a crazy 3 years, but it's been a lot of fun.
So what's the length of the episodes?
They actually started out as like full length, I would say like hour and a half interviews, like in-depth interviews. But now the interviews are about 30 minutes tops. And the individual episodes where it's just me usually range between 5 and 10 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Especially for like sustained attention, because nowadays everybody has an attention of a fire ant.
I think people can take things in small doses, like at least I can take things in small doses. And when you ask somebody to just sit and listen for an extended amount of time, that can be really, really difficult. And it's very difficult for me. So I would never ask anybody else to do it if I couldn't do it myself. So
no, facts. No, it's true.
Yeah.
So just in case, for those of you who have watched the show within the last 2 seasons, we're on season 3, by the way.
Nice.
Yes, I did it. Season 3. Wow.
We made it.
Hey, 3 years is a lot. It's not easy. Especially with media, whether it's a podcast, whether it's doing a public access show as I'm doing and things like that. It's not for the weak, man. You got to really be dedicated.
Yeah, you got to be consistent. You got to be patient and just trust yourself in the direction that you're headed in.
This is true. So today's topic, Kryus has touched upon the topic of ADHD. I love the reels that you do.
I enjoy making them.
Like, you know what? He might be right.
I enjoy making those reels because I want to add a little levity to the conversation, because it's very difficult to add any sort of humor to something that's very serious. And so I want to add a little levity to it in a healthy, safe way that shines light on the subject matter. It educates people, and the ultimate goal is to hopefully get people to feel comfortable enough to talk about their ADHD and to hopefully spread that knowledge around to other people as well.
And honestly, like you said, it is a difficult conversation. There are a lot of people that, I don't know, now that it's become more socially acceptable to admit that you have some form of ADHD, it's interesting for some parts, and then it's a little daunting for others, because you don't know how much do you want to like let go of information about it and stuff like that.
It can be really scary, not only to address it publicly, but to even address it, for yourself. When I was first diagnosed, it wasn't an immediate like, oh yeah, I have ADHD. No, it was a lot of emotions that I went through. Part of it was fear, part of it was anger, because I was like, there were no adults that saw this, these symptoms in me as I was younger. For those of you that don't know, I was diagnosed when I was 34 years old, 34, 35. And so it's been less than a year for me and my diagnosis. And so that's why I enjoy like this entire journey that I've been on, and I've been documenting it ever since.
Yeah. As we spoke off camera or off screen for the moment, I was very fortunate to be diagnosed at age 7. I went through the whole it was like once I was diagnosed with it, it kind of made sense for a lot of things.
Sure.
Like for me, I was diagnosed as hyperactive impulsive. So for hyperactive impulsive, those are for kids underneath the age of 10. That's their diagnosis. They can't stay still. They seem like they're running on a motor. They overtalk. They overshare. Sometimes they blurt out answers. They can't wait for their turn in school settings.
Sure.
Surprisingly, in public, they say they're shy, but they come across as they're like an extrovert. Like, really,
Sure.
you?
I can see how people can make that mistake for sure.
No, of course. And you know, I get the you're shy, really?
Yeah.
Like, have you not noticed that I was in the corner staring at you? And I didn't say anything for like a hot 5 minutes because I was observing what was going on.
The best way that I always describe shyness is I like to remind people that shyness is an emotion. It's a feeling, you know? So that's like saying if you're angry about something, just labeling somebody just as angry all the time. Like, no, you may not be angry all the time. You might just be angry in this moment. And so it may not be a lasting thing. Now, there's a difference between that and a preference. And now that's where like introversion comes into play, because introversion is a preference. Shyness is not a preference. That's a feeling. It's an emotion.
Exactly.
So I always try to make sure that people understand the difference between the two.
Exactly. And then another thing is just random fits of anger, sensitive to criticism, or to the fear of rejection. What else? Like the weird fits of anger would be just like, really, that pissed you off? I'm like, yes, it did. Damn it! You don't understand how important. And they're looking at you like, yeah, no, girl, no, I don't get it. It's like, it's fine. You don't. So I'm 40. I'm proud to admit it. I'm not embarrassed.
Nothing wrong with that.
And as an adult, I like to say that my symptoms, have manifested into impulse spending. At some point, it could also translate to even undereating, overeating, oversleeping, undersleeping.
I know everything that you just described.
Yeah.
I know those feelings very well.
Yeah.
Very, that's something that I very much have to manage on a daily basis, whether it be overspending, overeating, undereating. There's some days I can go all day without eating. There's some days I'll overeat or I'll gorge, and I have to find a lane down the middle in order to make that a healthy choice. It's those impulses are very difficult because a lot of times people will just say, well, just don't do it. And like when you say it like that, it makes it seem as though like we want to overspend. We want to overgorge our food, but like a lot of times it just simply doesn't work like that. And it's a lot deeper than just saying, hey, just don't do it. It takes a lot. It's a very exhausting thing that we have to do every single day. Having ADHD is exhausting. We have to work twice as hard for everything, because everything that some people take for granted, that people view as simple, we have to work twice as hard to make it happen.
So no, but you're absolutely right. It is exhausting. There's days that my favorite is that see the phrase that you just said about don't do it. It's like, yeah, okay. You just completely undermined everything that
No.
I just
Yes.
said to you because I dared to even speak it. Like I finally got my brain quiet enough to tell you, listen, I'm tired. I was able to categorize it, and this is the hamster's running crazy.
Yeah.
My
Every
hamster on the
day,
wheel
all
is
day.
called Fluffy, by the way.
Yeah.
So Fluffy in my brain is going crazy. Fluffy's like, oh my God, I gotta do this. I gotta do that. If I don't do
Right.
this, if I don't do that, I'm sinking. Help me. Like
It's really
the Kevin
hard.
Hart thing. Help me.
Yeah. It's really hard, and with
because
that mental workout that you do turns into physical exhaustion as well. So especially when we're out in public all day. So we have to, by the time we get home, we are physically exhausted from the mental Olympics that we play with ourselves all day long. And that's just the stuff that happens on an external basis with people that we have to communicate with. That's not even counting the things that are happening just in our head when we're by ourselves. It's truly exhausting.
It is, because you've got random, bursts of energy. You're like, oh snap, I want to do this, I want to do that. And then 2 hours later, why did I do that? Oh man, snap. The overthinking.
Yes.
And then it's just like, you know what? I don't want to do nothing. I'm just paralyzed. I don't want to do nothing. And then you got and then sometimes you seek sensory, whether it's the eating, drinking, sleeping, sometimes even just being on your phone passively.
Yeah, absolutely. Any sort of thing that you can potentially find comfort in can become a thing, and hyper focus is difficult, to manage sometimes, especially if you don't know how to navigate your day or navigate your life in a way to use hyper focus to your advantage, which I now have a better handle on, but it's still a struggle. It's still very difficult to manage.
No, oh man. It's like, well, again, with media, the beauty of media is the fact that, especially editing, is it's solitary, but then it's like a roller coaster ride. It's like,
It is.
I'm in the back of the roller coaster, I'm in the middle, I'm in the front, I'm going back to the. You go through like a few you go through a lot of emotions, but it's very satisfying. And it's sometimes even that you have to be careful of addictions, and that's what people don't talk about enough.
Yeah, I always warn people as well, when it comes to ADHD, that ADHD easily can walk hand in hand with other disorders. So like I'm diagnosed with ADHD, depression, and anxiety. So all of those things walk hand in hand, and sometimes one thing will complement the other, but most times those things can accentuate each other sometimes in a negative way, So I'll give you an example. When I beat myself up because my executive function is not working the way that I want, I can't push that start button, I can't finish that task or anything like that, I'll beat myself up mentally, and that'll cue the depression. And then from there, I'll start to worry about what's going to happen if I don't finish this task, or if I don't do what I'm supposed to be doing. I become super anxious about it. All of these things go hand in hand, and it can be very, very difficult to manage.
No, oh my gosh. You're preaching to the choir.
Yeah. This is for all the people listening and watching right now that may not have a feel for what it's like,
No, yeah. And there's time, especially when you get into that like paralysis and depression.
Yeah.
And it just feels like, well, there's times, I'm not gonna lie, that sometimes I lie in bed, and then you start to think of things like, oh my God, I'm gonna die someday. Fuck.
Yeah.
I haven't even planned my tombstone. I don't know if I want to be cremated, if I want to like have a funeral procession, or if I want to like, where am I gonna be buried? I don't know.
Right.
So you're just like, okay.
Yeah.
It's like, just focus on now.
Mm-hmm.
You're alive. You still, you're okay.
It can sometimes take you to a very dark place, and that
Oh yeah,
is
yeah,
really, really scary.
yeah.
And that's why I always recommend that you have tools in place to help you navigate that, to bring yourself out of it. Because there was
Mm-hmm.
a lot of my adult life that I wasn't able to bring myself out of it in a healthy way. And I would end up having these incredibly unhealthy coping mechanisms to work my way through that. And
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't until I started going to therapy consistently that I was able to
Mm-hmm.
finally get a handle on how to cope with these things in a healthy way.
Right. There's cognitive behavioral therapy that's good. There's
Hmm.
dialectical, I think.
Hmm.
Behavior therapy, DBT.
Hmm.
There's that one. There's just, standard, just talking it out. Even art therapy is also therapeutic too,
Hmm.
which is good. It depends on, like, how you want to kind of channel your energy to see
Hmm.
what really matters to, like, help you even push one foot in front of the other.
Yes,
Sometimes you
absolutely.
feel like you're stuck in mud or in glue and that you can't move,
Right.
but it's like you can. It's just you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's just like,
Hmm.
dang, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. It's and that's one of the reasons why it's really important to always understand that ADHD, depression, anxiety, they all affect us differently, right? So,
Of
like, for example,
course.
your ADHD, like, we both have ADHD, but your ADHD is different than mine, right? So the way that you handle managing your ADHD is most likely, it might be a little bit different than I handle mine.
Of
Neither of
course.
which are wrong,
Of course.
right? It's all about finding the tools and the techniques that will help you as an individual person, which is why I always recommend talking to a professional, a mental health professional or a coach, whomever, somebody that has the knowledge and can look at you from a 30,000-foot view that's not biased and give you the tools and the advice that you need to move your life forward.
Yeah. I can't even tell you. Let's see. How many times have I started therapy and stopped therapy? Let's see.
Hmm.
Uh,
It's not
it,
uncommon. Hmm.
no, it's not. It's not. It's not. Let's see. Age 7 to about, yeah, until I got to high school.
Hmm.
Then high school until I got to college. Then college years. And then even before I had my son, I also was in therapy. And the
Hmm.
therapist looked at me like, "Why are you here? You're pregnant and you're married."
Yeah.
I said, "Yeah, but I have anxiety episodes.
Hmm.
So sometimes they mimic panic attacks, which is part
Hmm.
of things that can happen in life.
Hmm.
So when those panic attacks come on, baby, whoo-hoo, whoo-hoo, it's like,
Yeah,
okay,
sure.
it's like
Hmm.
shoo shoo. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, do I breathe into a bag? Do I do this? Do I do that? And it's interesting. And to be honest with you, for a long time, it's been tough. I'm not gonna lie. It's been tough to kind of zero in on what is the trigger. And it takes time, like you said, going through therapy, learn your triggers, learn what's gonna, like, send you over the
Hmm.
edge, and
Yeah,
you'd be
that's
surprised.
all important stuff to know, and you don't have to
Mhm.
figure it out on your own. Like, there are people out there that can
Exactly.
help you.
No, absolutely.
Hmm.
So what would be some good advice that you can, like, give somebody who got recently diagnosed?
First and foremost, I would say that whatever you're feeling is valid. I want to make sure that you feel validated. There's no feeling that you get after a diagnosis that's incorrect. So after being diagnosed, don't sit there and be like, I shouldn't be mad about this, or I shouldn't be sad, I shouldn't be angry. No, your feelings are valid 100%. So that's what I would say first and foremost. Secondly, whatever you do, it's okay to think about the past and learn from it, but don't worry about the future, worry about the right now.
Exactly.
There's going to be a lot of times that you're either going to be focused on the past and the future, and you're going to take yourself away from living in the moment because you are worried about what's going to come next, or you are worried or angry or whatever it may be about the past. You're going to have a lot of different feelings here, and all of them are valid. So now you need to focus on what you need to do to move forward. That's the hard part, because you sometimes want to just wallow in your sorrow and beat yourself up and all of that. And that's okay, but don't live there. Find a way to
Yeah.
move forward. And it's easier said than done. But once again, you don't have to do it by yourself. There are people out there that can help you.
No, absolutely. And I'm going to make it simple as 2 words: get help.
Yes.
Do not be afraid to get help.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we're living in a great time that if you need help, there are resources. Sometimes you got to push the ego aside.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah.
I'm gonna use a quote from a kids movie, because I watch a lot of kids movies with my son.
Mm-hmm.
Silencio Bruno. Sometimes you gotta quiet the inner, workings enough for you to realize, you know what, I can't handle this by myself. I do need some external intervention. I need something to like help me push forward.
Absolutely. And it could be little things, that you have in your life. Like, for example, I have 3 tattoos. Well, I have a lot of tattoos, but 3 of them are kind of like reminders for me. They're all in Spanish, and they're all song titles from In the Heights by Lin-Manuel Miranda. So this one, respira, which means breathe. And then over here you have paciencia y fe, which means patience and faith. And then right over here you have alabanza. Praise to this. And these are really good reminders that I can just look down on my arms and just be reminded of how I'm supposed to move myself forward. It's okay to breathe. Take a moment and breathe. It's okay to have to have just patience with yourself and with the situation, whatever situation you're in. Have faith that it's going to be okay. And alabanza, when you're able to just say, I'm thankful for this, praise to this. I'm thankful for this moment. I'm thankful for the things that I have in my life. Live in the moment. Be thankful for what you have and figure out a way to move forward.
That's right. Oh, and also, well, and I'll tell you this: in the Caribbean, especially in Dominican Republic, when somebody has a different ability, not to say disability, when someone has a different ability, whether it's unseen or seen, it's never a positive reaction. So whenever I've told people, when somebody goes, I have ADHD, I'm like, so do I. Really? I'm just looking at the person like, okay, what do you mean? Why are you shocked? No, because you seem like well composed and organized.
Yeah, that just shows that they have an ignorance to it,
Exactly.
and I'm always cautious about people that say that they have ADHD, yet are surprised when somebody says they have ADHD, and they're like, oh, you don't seem like you have ADHD. Like, that just means that they don't have an understanding of what ADHD is, and that's on them, and that's unfortunate, especially if they are actually diagnosed with ADHD. Exactly. Because those of us that are diagnosed with ADHD and manage it every day and talk to other people with ADHD, we know that it comes in all shapes and sizes. We know that it's more than just like, oh, hey, look, squirrel. We know that it's far deeper than that, and a lot of people just don't get that. And anybody that thinks that it's all, hey, squirrel, they have no idea what ADHD is. None. Can that be something? Yes, absolutely. That could be part of it. But like, for example, I don't have a, hey, look, squirrel. Like, I don't, that's not one of my symptoms, like I am able to like, I do lose my focus, but like, it's not because of something random, right?
No.
Like in the corner of my eye, right?
No.
So like for me, like I'll lose my focus because I just go direct, like just to another thought that might be related to what I was talking about or thinking about, and then it's hard for me to come back from that. Like very difficult to come back to that. But it's never just like, oh, hey, look, squirrel. Like, it's never like, oh, look, a shiny object. It's not like that. It's a lot deeper than that for me, at least.
No, exactly. And then it's like you said, as you were saying earlier, it is very it's very exhausting to like keep up the facade for so long.
Yeah, we mask a lot.
Because this, sometimes I find myself random times like crying over stuff, and people are like, And then again, it depends on what headspace you're in, or what is like, what Fluffy in there. Fluffy is my hamster in my head who's running. This is, I think, as candid as I ever gotten talking about my ADHD diagnosis with
How do you feel talking about it?
It feels great, but I have told a few friends, and I have gotten that response of that. And then now that I'm making videos and doing the documentary, I feel it's much more liberating. And then I've gotten interesting support from people. I've gotten like, oh my God. You're just looking at them like, okay. This is not a movie scene. This is my life. Like,
yes. The movie's not over yet. I don't know why you're clapping. I still have a long time to go. Hopefully it's not the end of the end credits.
Like I wish it were, but no. It's like no, yes, no.
Still a long ways to go.
Yes. No, I'd like to thank you for your time.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you. I really do appreciate it. I love talking about this.
Okay, so now you want to interview me. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. I just honestly,
he's so used to being the interviewer. So I'm sure it's a nice change of pace.
Yeah, I've been very, very fortunate that I've been the guest on a lot of people's, podcasts and TV shows over the last year or so, and it's actually very much a relief. Because obviously, and this as an interviewer yourself, like when you come into one of these, you come in prepared. You have to do research. You have to prepare questions. You have to prepare the flow, and you have all of these things that you have to do. And so whenever I come into an interview and I don't have to prepare anything, it's a relief for me. I'm like, I'll take it. I'll take it any day.
No, yeah. But the thing is, I always try to be like, as organized as I can. Sometimes for the person, I'll send them, this is the topic that we're going to talk about. Let me know, like I spoke to you, what you don't want to talk about. You know what I mean? Because like, I don't like to infringe on anybody, because sometimes we cultivate personas and, images of how we want to be perceived.
Yes.
So then like when someone kind of breaches that, it's hard to come back, because the internet has a long, lovely memory.
It never forgets. It never forgets. Yeah.
So I am very happy to be a 90s kid that I don't have evidence of a lot of of my foibles and disasters.
It's tough to have your life out there 24/7, and I'm a 90s kid too, and so it's not something that we really ever had to work. Like we didn't have TikTok or Twitter or Facebook,
which is great.
Back in the 90s, early 2000s. Like we didn't have to worry about that. And man, I'm glad that my high school years weren't documented, because I was an idiot. So like I'm glad that can just live in the past and people's memories.
Same. For me in high school, everybody knew who I was. It was an all-girls school. There was only 67 of us. And and I was like the tallest person of the bunch.
Yeah.
And then of course it was just like, okay. And I was the most vocal one, depending on the subject. Sure. Like if you ever wanted to see me quiet in a class, there was a specific class that I was quiet in, and it was just math, because I was just like,
yeah.
You want me to do what now? Okay. All right. Do you have tutoring after this? Because I and then of course now when my son has he's autistic, and he has a little bit of his moments of ADHD. It's undiagnosed yet. I'm trying to get him a diagnosis for ADHD as well. Put on his individualized education plan. And it is not easy, because it's expensive to get testing. And I'm doing my best with what I can at this point. So circling back to that, he has moments that he's like that, and I'm just like, and the teachers are looking at me like, what do I do? I'm like, first of all, don't have a breakdown. Jeez. No. It's like, we need to have one sane adult and calm person.
Sure.
It's like, I have my hamster running, like, Oh, slow down. Okay, all right. Your son doesn't want to do. And then, see, there's a few words that really, aside from the phrase of just do it. Oh, you don't look like. Another phrase that bothers me that sometimes comes along with ADHD is like, you're so bright, you're so intelligent, but you're lazy. Like, you know what? Your mother.
Yeah.
Like, that's the New York answer in me. Like, you know what? Your mother.
Yeah, between laziness and procrastination, people think that, it comes down to laziness. And I used to beat myself up because I used to think I was lazy, and come to find out I'm not. There's literally something chemically happening in my brain that is preventing me from doing what I want to do. Mm-hmm. And I went 34, 35 years beating myself up about not working hard enough. And now I know what was behind it. And so it's nice to be able to work hard and knowing how to manage myself so I can really push myself forward.
That's right. Okay, so we're going to do a little thing here that to educate the public a little better.
Okay.
About ADHD. We're going to talk, we're going to shoot off. We spoke a little bit about a few symptoms. However,
okay,
we're going to talk about, I'll tell you this thing. There are types of ADHD that people don't talk about. And people are like, what do you mean there's types of ADHD? I'm like, yeah, it's like, there's the top three. The top three are inattention, impulsivity, hyperactivity, and then you have the combination of that. And people are like, what you talking about? I'm like, what you mean what I'm talking about? Like, you do not know this? How dare you? It's just gonna be like, sure. I'm sorry. So I'm going to put this up on screen so we can show the world. Let's take a look. I wish I had more than one monitor, but I do not. Okay, so what do you think of this? So
I've seen versions of this before, and I think that it gives a decent breakdown as to what can happen. And I think the one thing that can possibly be misconstrued is that it's not always like black and white, right? So like there's always going to be, some like surprise crossover that might happen, like for example, I'm looking at loses objects, right? Like that could easily be put over in the hyperactive side for multiple reasons. Like there's things that can kind of go hand in hand. But with that being said, it's a decent breakdown. But if people are really curious about ADHD, I would implore them to continue to do research and use this as a starting point.
No, exactly. So like, for example, I think for the ADHD hyperactive, impulsivity, yes, fidgety, yes, restless. I mean, in terms of me, this is me. Yeah, I feel like I'm on the go sometimes. I do have difficulty resting. I do have the sleep issues. Sometimes, it depends. I don't think I would leak into oppositional defiance disorder. Or a compulsion disorder.
Yeah, and that's the thing I would want to make sure people understand as well, is that there's some things on here that you simply may not have, exactly. and that doesn't mean that it doesn't, like that column may not apply to you, but it doesn't. It's not one of those things that you have to have all of these checked off in order for you to be diagnosed with it. Like there's a lot more to it for sure.
No, exactly. And that's the thing that, people fail. I think we're living in the age that Google's my doctor. It's like, no, it's not.
Yeah, I think
go to like an actual person.
I think that there's nothing wrong with self-diagnosis as long as you're getting your information from credible resources.
Yes.
And it's because here's the issue with self-diagnosis is that when you self-diagnose, you need to understand the limitations of self-diagnosis. You're biased to yourself. So your treatments that you give yourself may not be exactly what you need, and you have to take that risk when you decide to not talk to somebody that's a professional that can look at you without bias. So you have to always fully understand the potential limitations that you have in this case. And like even our therapists have therapists, like there's nobody that's that's off the table here.
No,
So you
exactly.
always have to be incredibly careful. And the other side of it is that you might look at this and say, oh, I have this, and this, that means I have ADHD. But once again, there might be something else that's attributing to it, right? So you might be talking excessively because you're anxious. You might have difficulty with certain things because you're depressed. Like there's a lot of things. So like you have to always be able to look at things with an open mind and don't paint yourself in a corner, because once you paint yourself in the corner, you might start treating yourself for something that you don't need to be treated for.
Yeah, like even like you were saying, even here for inattentive, it's distractibility, overlooks details, forgetfulness, loses objects, like you were saying, difficulty regulating attention and focus, diagnosed later in life, more likely to have internalizing disorders as anxiety and depression, listening difficulties, most common among adults and females, processing speed impacted. You're like, again, you have to do your research accordingly, and you have to find out what's going to work for you.
Yes.
So definitely, everybody, please take care of yourself. Make sure that you invest in yourself, because you are worth it. You have to realize that everything that you can potentially do for yourself is valid. You have to uplift yourself. And
That's important.
it's easier said than done, because what I can do to cheer myself up is different from what Kryus can do to cheer himself up.
Yes.
Or to get him going and back to what he needed to do. Like there's times that, listen, this monthly planner has more. I'm gonna be honest with you, it doesn't even have dates about. It has like maybe the show dates. And mind you, this is like a year old planner.
Yeah.
And it basically has like a lot of my usernames to to websites, because listen, if I don't write it down, I'm sorry, I have too much going on.
That's fair. Yeah, I need to. I always have a notebook nearby with me, and you probably saw me at one point writing on it. But I always keep a notebook. That this actually says Paciencia Fe as well. But I always have a notebook with me.
No, you have to.
No, wherever I go, for sure.
Yeah, or like, listen, even breaking down to just trusty old pen and paper in the pockets of like wherever you got to go.
I have Post-it notes. I'm always prepared. Always prepared.
Pack of pens in the house.
Yes. Like this is
like, okay.
I'm prepared with everything.
So a question: would you ever last but not least, to wrap it up, would you ever write a book?
I'm writing one.
Okay.
I am writing one, but it is almost done. It'll be published probably at some point in the next couple months, but it's not necessarily about ADHD. It's about introversion. But correct. I do touch upon ADHD in the book and how it affects my introversion. So I'm actually finishing up that manuscript, and so I'll be publishing my first book this year.
Cool. So how many pages is it?
At the current moment, well, it's a manuscript. It's a manuscript, so the Word document itself is, oh God, I have to look at the manuscript. So I don't know how many like book pages that will turn into.
Okay.
But let's see. I can actually answer this right now. Let me pull up the manuscript. That is draft 1. This is draft 2. So draft 2 is currently. Wow, I write a lot. This is taking me like a year to write.
Listen.
So the manuscript itself is 8 pages, which brings it to about a little right now, currently 24 pages, a little over 10,000 words. So that would probably be around 100 something pages in like book page numbers. But manuscript style right now, it's about 24 pages.
Okay. So you're focusing on introversion. Believe it or not, now is an interesting time and a great conversation to talk about introversion, extroversion, because nowadays with media, there's a lot of people that are coming out like, you're like, I'm an introvert. You're like, what? You? Again, you really? You're an introvert? It's like, yeah. Again, why are you not noticing things? Like, hello.
Yeah, I mean, there's common misconceptions about introverts. You know, for example, we were talking about this earlier. A lot of people think introverts are shy. So when I tell them I'm an introvert, they'll be like, "What are you talking about? I see you talking to people all the time." And I'm like, that has nothing to do with my introvert. I'm not a shy person. There's not a shy bone in my body. But I'm an introvert, which means my preference is to be alone. My preference is to not have small talk. My preference is to, probably spend an evening by myself. But that doesn't mean that I don't go outside or I don't talk to people. Exactly. The easiest way to describe the difference between introversion and extroversion is to think of it like a battery. So introverts and extroverts have a social battery that needs to be recharged. When introverts are around people, our social battery drains. And in order for us to recharge that battery, we need to be alone. For extroverts, it's the complete opposite. Extroverts, when they're alone, their social battery is not being replenished. But when they're around people, that's when they get their fill. Right. So it's all just in the matter of where your battery is at. Because like I can go to a party and be around a lot of people, but my social battery is going to drain pretty fast. And when I do, then I'll take action from there. But like if I know that I'm going to be out at a party, I'm going to recharge my battery and be ready for that party.
No, exactly. There's a lot of dialectic that has to go on. Like, for example, I spoke about this on my TikTok. Like, if I'm not the party planner, I'm not exactly like really gunning to go outside if I don't have to.
Sure.
Like, the only time like you see me hanging outside is like, oh, I'm going to the taco truck, or I'm going to the supermarket, or I'm going to go do my laundry at the laundromat. I like when I see people just in New York, it's very common that people just hang outside the buildings. And then I just look at them like, okay, you literally have a beach chair and you're sitting right outside the building. Okay, great, that's fantastic. Yeah, that's so good for you. And then when I tell you, excuse me, you look at me like I have, like I'm asking the worst possible thing of you.
Right.
Yeah. So, Kryus, this has been great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
All right. I hope you don't drain on me.
You're good.
I'm a little drained, as you can tell. But I'm
it's all good. That just means you're a human being. That's all that means.
That's right. That's right.